said, my book isn't even published yet. How can I read it? And the teacher said, well, can't you just print it off the computer? Oh, sure. So I printed off the computer, and I went in and started reading it to the class. So while it was being published, and I was getting some feedback from the kids, and the kids were I realized that they liked the dog better than the girl that I thought was the main character. The dog was actually the character. And what happens with Domino is he changed colors. First he was like this, but the grandma went to cooking school and she didn't realize she was learning magic. So her first formula that she tried was to clean the dog. And he turned out like this. And the grandma said, oh, don't worry. At least he's clean and bright. So the kids really, I found out they liked that dog, and especially this color. So while I was reading it, I have a chapter where he goes swimming in blue water, and he turns this color. And I actually drew a picture of a dog and colored it like this, and then I took a blue marker and went over it so I could see what color he actually changed, and he changed to this color. But when I had the dog turned back to black and white, the kids said, oh, they wanted him like this. So for the sequel, I started him out black and white, and he turned color again, and they liked that. I also had my first autograph session with that book. The first book came while I was still reading to the kids, so I got to take it into the classroom. And in the classroom, while I was reading to the kids, well, I forgot to tell you this part. I put comments in the book that the kids actually made. So I got to read those comments to those kids, and they started lining up behind me. And somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and she said, will you sign my back? They had magic markers, and they were having me sign their t-shirts. So that was my first autograph session, and I really enjoyed it. This book is a picture book, and it's the only picture book that I've written. And what it was is, I answered an ad. Does anybody know about Dan Pointer? He writes a book about self-publishing, and he has a newsletter. And in that newsletter, somebody put an ad that they were looking for authors and illustrators for a picture book called Sarah the Pineapple Cat. And I wanted to see if I could write a picture book, plus I wanted to see if I could use other people's characters and write a book. So I gave him a couple of ideas that I would write. I could write about a cat who was a stowaway on a trip, or I could write a book about a cat who was having kittens, and he wanted me to do the stowaway book. So I did that, and I didn't know the illustrator. He had the illustrator lined up already, and these books came out, and there was a whole series of them. I guess all the pictures of the books are in the back, and they all have different authors and illustrators. But he's since pulled this off the shelf, so it's not very available. You can find it on Amazon, I think. And then I decided to try, I was still writing for YA. These are, no, sorry, middle grade. These are middle grade, this is still middle grade. And in my books, I like to put pictures, even though middle grade typically doesn't have pictures. But I've been in schools where I visited the library with the students, and they all went to the picture book section, and they were 6th graders, so they were still interested in pictures, so I decided to put pictures, and they're black and white. This was an idea that I got when we were celebrating Earth Day, and it was an anniversary, probably 30th anniversary or something of Earth Day, and I went to bed thinking, I wonder if we've really made any difference in this world because of Earth Day. and she put it on her newsletter that she was in a business group for green businesses, and I started getting all kinds of contacts, and people wanted to be in my book. And some people said, I'll do anything to be in your book, and I don't even know how they found out about it. So it was just falling together. Families were coming to me, and then I would go on websites of children who had their own environmental organizations, and there were a lot of them that they had started when they were 8 or 9 years old. So I put them in, I interviewed them, and I put all these stories together, and then I heard of a school that was green, and they wanted to be in the book, so they told me how they made their school green. And actually this book's been my bestseller ever. And last year, this came out in 2009, I was contacted by a radio station that were going to do an Earth Day program, and it was going to have Ed Bagley Jr. on there with me. So I was on this radio show after all these years this came out. So. And it also won some National Book Award.